Guess my phone's ready with whether I am or not. I had started a video and then I did not like it, so I deleted it and just waited long enough and my video started rolling. So here we are. Wasn't entirely sure if I was going to do this today or not, and I've been trying to be more mindful of going with the flow and seeing where life takes me. So yeah, the other day I talked about doing that, and it ended up putting me in the car to hear the song on the radio a couple times all the way through, and was happy for that. And then I made a comment about maybe I'll hear it a third time, and I did. And that one was kind of funny because, okay, I did the video and I had mentioned going and skating, and I wasn't sure if I was going to do it, and then it kind of rained a little bit. Not a ton, but I wasn't sure if it was going to rain like for the rest of the evening or what it was going to look like on that end. So I kind of ended up thinking it probably wouldn't skate, and so I went ahead and just watched the video I did and got it posted online, right? And after I was done with all that, it was like 6:30, and I was like, fuck it, I can skate. It stopped raining, it was nice, and it's like, I can skate. So I did, and there was like less than 30 seconds of another song on the radio when I got in the car, and then before I could even back out of the driveway, the song came on again. So I kind of manifested my way to hearing it a third time, all just with going with the flow. Because if I would have gone before that, would have missed it. So, yeah. It's not been hugely eventful the past few days, which is good. But, okay, yesterday I got up and so I mentioned the other day that kind of over the whole Mother's Day thing too, and especially since I've been realizing so many things with the toxic connection that I have with my own mother. So I mentioned that obviously I have to do something for gift wise, lest the family be disappointed in me, I guess, or whatever. So it's like doing the thing, right? But as I mentioned in the other video the other day, it's like the stuff I can do outside, it's like that's as much for nature as it is for my mother. So, and it's something I enjoy doing in the meantime. So I decided I wanted to go to the pond place and get the replacement plant that the guys threw out, not knowing probably that it was going to come back, and it was really pretty when it comes back. So I went after another one of those and ended up getting a few other things too. But on the way over there, it was just kind of just the go with the flow kind of thing, right? So I wasn't really anything on the way over there. When I got there and was looking through the plants and figuring out what I wanted to get, ended up getting 3 there's 5 altogether. 3 of them are 2 are in pots, 1 is in the waterfall, and then the other 2 are floating ones that are not above taking over, but are pretty easy to get rid of since they just float and don't dig in on anything. But they're supposed to be good with combating algae, so I figured algae's been real bad the past several years, so we'll just go back to those. But when I went to pay for them, of course I'm distracted by the pretty things, and they had blue onyx at the register. So I'm standing there, and it's like, ooh, it was like $3. And it's a heart, so obviously had to get that. They also had some that were like $6. I don't think it was blue onyx. I don't remember what it said it was. But the koi fish they had were, they were like $6. I'll probably go back and get one at some point, but not today. But I was excited over that one. So, especially since I've been kind of enjoying onyx here lately. I found green onyx on Etsy. I don't remember completely what it's for. Green associated with heart chakra, blue associated with throat chakra, and communication and all that fun stuff. And last night when I was reading about blue onyx, since I got a pretty new rock, it said something about it's a member of the quartz family. And this is like ridiculous, but okay, so I had this necklace because I needed another necklace that was hanging on the other side of the bathroom. It's just clear quartz. And the past couple days it's caught my eye, but then I didn't think anything more of it. I just like was looking at it. But then when I was looking up the blue onyx and it said it's a member of the quartz family, then I was like, oh yeah, and I keep looking at this other one, so maybe I should look into that. And I don't remember all that one's for. But it said something like it's a master healer or something. And I was like, well, obviously since we're flowing, and it caught my eye a few times, and then this other one led me to look up meanings for the stones or what they do, and then I thought to look into that, and it's like, well, maybe that means it's time to start wearing this one again. So went on the selenite. They both did overnight, and then here we are. So yeah. I don't know, it's kind of, I woke up at it's probably 4:15 this morning when I fed the dogs. And my mom had mentioned something about she had one pile of laundry left, or one load of laundry, and she was like, well, because I had mentioned that I needed to do laundry too. Where it got complicated was I took a shower yesterday and realized the water was hard, so we had no salt in the water softener, and that's not cool, and it's not good for doing laundry. So I looked into it. There was not any salt in the thing. Luckily, we had some in the garage, so it was not not an ordeal. But since we had to wait on the softener to cycle before we could throw the last load of my mom's stuff in, I ended up putting it in at 4:15 this morning. It was right after I fed the dogs. So in that time frame. And the washer and dryer kind of being ridiculous at the moment. Washer keeps going off balance and not finishing, spinning water out of the clothes and all that fun stuff. And it's annoying. And today the dryer's taking forever to dry that load. So, since I wanted to do my laundry, I started with leggings, because I don't use the dryer for that, and I knew it was probably going to take a while for my parents' last load to finish. So I went ahead and did that, and got all the leggings hung up, and then I put in the load of dark stuff, right? So, of course, I have my whole thing planned that I want to do tomorrow, since I have to be around my family. And I'm going to embrace my heathen. And yeah, so I was like, I really wanted to get the one shirt washed, which was that Rotting Christ shirt. So, of course, when somebody says something tomorrow about why I needed to wear that one, that'll of course be because my grandmother was so uplifting and encouraging about the shirt she didn't like that I had on the other day. So, well, for grandma's benefit, perhaps. I don't know. But yeah, since it is 5 o'clock and my parents still have shit in the dryer because it's not dry. I even split the load in half the last time I kicked it up, which means there's another half that needs to go back in. But since I had my dark stuff was clean, I ended up grabbing I grabbed a bunch of my shirts and just hung them up outside on the porch because it's like beautiful today. It's like 76, I think. And the leggings that I anticipate wearing with it tomorrow, I feel like they're already dry. They've been hanging in my bathroom with the door open, but it feels like they're done. So by tomorrow they definitely should be. But I hung a few shirts up, right? And then I went outside and threw the ball for Gidge for a minute. And it's like, wait a second. I didn't even make sure that the shirt I want to wear tomorrow is one that I hung up outside. It's like, oh, cool. So luckily I still had like 3 more spots. And I grabbed 3 more shirts and put them out there. So they smell nice and fresh. And then hopefully they continue that. Every now and then it smells really weird outside, and I feel like it makes my hair smell weird, but I don't know what it is, and I don't know when it happens particularly, because I don't know what it is, right? So it's like, I don't know if there's something in particular that just makes me notice it, or what, but as of right now, the laundry is smelling good, so hopefully it stays that way. That we're just going to be thankful that it will stay that way. That's where we're at. So, yeah. So anyway, when I went to try to go back to sleep, I was not having a whole lot of luck. I listened to the song over and over again because I can, and because it was released at that point. So, yeah. So I did that. And when I woke up, when I was getting ready to go back to sleep, I was having like this series of thoughts. That's like, well, this makes me sound good and crazy, but hey, we're just gonna roll with it, right? Okay, so I've talked on here before about how there have been some things that have made me wonder if he is aware of my channel and that I'm doing this thing, right? And something with, okay, I don't even know what was I thinking? I just had a bunch of thoughts last night about, okay, like at one point he had posed this question on his Instagram that said something about going on tours and posing the question to people of what's the strangest thing you believe to be true. And last night, I started having this little thought process of what if this connection is one of those things that he has possibly mentioned as a strange thing that he thinks or believes to be true. And what if, of course, the guys that he goes on tour with and is connected with on that end, what if at some level they are aware of this whole thing because of that possibility, right? That is a strange thing that he believes to be true, is that we have this connection even though we've never met. And I don't know, my wheels were turning on it for a while. It's like, but then what if, I have like this big long spiel going through my head, and then I was like, I need to send this to myself. So of course I have my little text conversation thing with myself that when I have dreams or whatever, just random thoughts, the things that I want to make sure I remember, I will send myself notes in the text message, so that I have them twice, right? Because I send it and then it sends it again because it's, call and response. But I was doing that, and I had this music thing playing, and it was like this Twin Flames reunion frequency kind of a thing. And I don't know, I found it back in like 2020 and got really into it. And it's just tones and music and stuff, so it's no big deal, but I like the little picture on it and all that fun stuff. But I was listening to that, and of course, we've been doing sound healing in the Inner Path group, and talking about like different frequencies and what they do. And 432, I don't know if it's a heart frequency thing or whatever, but the point of the thing was to be a twin flame kind of thing, right? So I assume something along that line, but whatever, I don't know. But I like to listen to it, right? And I have on and off for quite a while. And I was listening to it this morning, and then of course my YouTube currently, when I minimize things, it would leave the little box playing in the corner, and I could do other things behind it, but that doesn't always happen now. Sometimes I can, but sometimes I can't, and I don't know what the catch is on when I can and when I cannot. But for this morning, I could not. And the music went down, or like minimized, when I brought the text message up. But when it minimized, of course, 432 frequency, I realized it was 4:32 a.m. at that time. And when it caught my attention, I was like, wait a second. And I clicked back into the YouTube thing to make sure I'd seen it right. And I saw something that had 10 as well. And it's like, where did I see that? Because I saw 43210. And obviously countdown. But then I realized way later that it's because today's the 10th. So it was the date. But it's like, I know I saw 10 on there, but I don't know why. But yeah, it was 4:32 a.m. on the 10th. So I send myself this big long thing. And then, like, there were a couple times when I looked at the clock, like 4:43 stood out to me, and that one's caught my attention a few times recently. And when I looked it up, it was something kind of relevant. So it's just kind of like, okay, just flowing and making weird connections, and that's okay, but whatever. But yeah, I don't know. Like, it's a whole weird thing. I know, but then, God, there was something else yesterday too. Oh, I know what it was yesterday. Since I don't normally go to the area where the pond store is, I don't normally see these signs. I've seen them before a lot of places, but I hadn't seen any in a while. But yesterday, I saw one and it kind of got my attention. It was something, it's like, it doesn't really seem relevant at this point in time, but it was like something for foster parents, right? And obviously I'm so far not set up to do that right now. But it like got my attention. And then as I was leaving that store, I got a little ways away, and it's like, okay, they didn't have, I don't know, I was thinking about like the baskets to plant the plants in, right? Because I didn't know if we had any more, and for some reason I was drawn to go to Lowe's, and there was a Lowe's not too far away, so I changed the location of where I wanted to go in the app, or my Waze app, and it brings up Lowe's, and of course the address is 4444. It's like, okay. It's like, so clearly I meant to go here today too. So I went there, got a couple hibiscus plants and some more, or like 3 things of spray paint that, the pink I was out of. I needed that. Black, I will probably, black I go through pretty quick. But yeah, it's just like, clearly I meant to go. But I saw a couple more of those foster parent signs, and it just like shifted me into like this weird vision where I feel like at some point in the not too distant future, that's going to be something that I end up doing. But it was weird because it was like older kids, like 16 to 18, and it's like I just like started seeing these different visions, and it's like, okay, so am I now getting glimpses of like my future? And I kind of think I am, which it's not a new thing really. It's just, I feel like, okay, used to, I just like lump it in as like some kind of daydream, whatever, just wandered off again. It's just one of those things. And now I'm realizing that I think it's actually more pointing me in the direction of something that will be on my path, you know. And it came up, there was another one that came up the other day, and it was something with shelter dogs. And I know some of the local shelters around here will allow you to take one of the dogs for the day, and you know, they wear their little adopt me vest or whatever, and you can take them different places in the community, so then they're not just stuck in the cage the whole time, and they get to go out and be seen by other people who might potentially want to adopt them, right? So then I was seeing like the scenario of going to shelters, you know, in various places, and going in 22 going in and doing what I'm partial to doing, which is find the ones that are kind of the most shut down, right? And that was how I ended up with Doogie, you know, my little rat terrier, years ago, because, what was it? I think 2007 when I ended up getting him. I started looking on Pet Finder after I rehomed my cats. And I've talked about that on here before too. That's not something that I regret doing it, rehoming the cats. But for whatever reason at the time, I went ahead and did it. But then it's like, have space. So I started looking on Pet Finder and ended up with another dog. Even though we had 3, you know, I was living with my parents back at that time as well. But it was after undergrad and all that stuff. And I saw this little rat terrier at the place in town, and he reminded me a lot of the first dog that I had. 2, 3, 4, 5. Which was Chip. And Chip was the one that found us when I was a year old. I think he showed up at our trailer that we used to live in. I don't remember all of the story behind Chip, but I was like a year old and he showed up, and then, you know, of course my parents didn't trust him around me because I was so little, but then that dog was like very much my protector, and that was like, you know, that dog was very much mine. Or I was his, or whatever. But it's like he found me just to protect me, kind of a thing. And, you know, he ended up being one of my traumatic moments when I was 8, and he had to be put down. He was old and getting kind of grumpy, and like the day he ended up getting put down, I had reached under a chair where he was hiding at, and he'd snapped at me. So since he snapped at me especially, it was kind of a sign that he's obviously not feeling good, something's going on. And so that was that. But I'm wanting to say that was Halloween or right there about Halloween. So it got to a point where it was one of those things that I hated October for a long time. And I have in my lifetime had a lot of dogs especially that have ended up dying in October. So there was Chip, there was Doogie, there was Chance. I don't know. There might be other animals. I had a lot of animals. But yeah, I know those ones definitely. But like Doogie and Chance, that was Doogie died in 2013 and Chance died in 2014. Doogie did it on his own. Chance, I had to make the decision, and Chance, that one was rough, and I ended up resenting my mom for a while because of that, because she said, it's your dog, you have to make this decision all by yourself. It's like, fuck you. I don't care how old I am, this sucks. So, yeah. God, that whole thing. We had the appointment. He had this open wound on his elbow that we had to keep covered because he hit it every single time he'd lay on the concrete or the hard floor, or the carpet would rub it. And it was this open wound, and it smelled awful. And, I think like the night before, I don't know. There were a few things that kind of made it seem like he wasn't feeling very well. And so we ended up taking him to do that. And in the process, of course, since it was my decision I had to make by myself, of course my parents were still there because there's still family dog, but I'm down on the floor with him, and then like when the vet gave him the shot, then it's like, he said everything that he was doing, and like the first one there was a shot to kind of relax him, and then like I panicked and had this moment where everything in me screamed stop. But then it was too late, because like in the time it would have taken me to say anything, don't do it, then it was already done. It was like, yeah, so obviously still, yeah, crap. Never know when this shit's gonna hit me. Of course, didn't really know that I was going to be talking about him today either. So I don't even remember how I got there. So hold on a second. Okay, 8:19. That's one of those numbers that follows me, so a lot. It's popped up in a few places the past couple of days too, so, and again, frequently on this thing when I'm doing these. So how they're just visions? Is that how I got there? Anyway, going back to the thing, I don't remember how that led me to Chance. Oh, Doogie. And like he was really shut down when he was at the rescue. Like the pictures they had of him, he just looked so sad. And he reminded me of Chip, right? And yeah, that's how I got to Chance. Backtrack away from Chance. That wasn't really part of the story. When I went to get Doogie, okay, I volunteered to foster at the rescue, and it was specifically because I wanted to check out this dog and to bond with the dog, right? And so I went in his cage, and I sat there with him for like, I want to say about 10 minutes or so before he started getting interested enough to come sniff me and check me out. And I just sat there. I wasn't facing him. And he was hiding. They had this little playhouse thing, like a little plastic playhouse that was his little shelter in there, in the cage. And he had a little sweater on. And I sat in there long enough, kind of close enough to him that he could kind of come check me out, but not get too far away from the playhouse. And when he finally got close enough, I could hook my finger in his collar. I did, and then I pulled him over and sat him on my lap, and like we just sat there for a while. And the lady at the rescue came out, and she was impressed because, he's not trying to be involved with anybody, and he was from an animal hoarder, and I guess there was something with the lady had so many dogs, but she was also not wanting people to take her dogs away from her, so she would apparently, if people came to try to take some of the dogs away, there was something about hitting them with bats. I don't know all those details. I know there was something with the bat, and part of his little trauma, he had like all his teeth were rotten, and I think she said when they got him out of there, the lady was down to 80 some dogs. But yeah. So anyway, for that one, like I ended up with him on my lap, and then it's like, we're gonna try to foster this situation, right? And then, as we're checking it out, and I took him home with me, and all the other dogs just immediately accepted him like he was just meant to be there. And my mom came in because she did not know in advance that I was bringing this dog in the house. And of course, when I brought him in, like, she just got home from work, and she just looked at me and was like, and his little nub just went down. Like, as soon as the door opened, he like perked up and was wagging his nub and all excited, and then she did that, and he just like wilted. It's like, he ended up staying with us, obviously, but yeah, it was the whole thing. But anyway, so back to the vision. The vision point was, I could see me making it more of a thing to go connect with those types of dogs, but to get them seen, to have people, more interested in them from the community situation kind of a thing. I've seen that be something that I see me doing, like, in the future. That's not the first time I've seen that one. And I don't even remember exactly what brought it up. I think there was something with people being around puppies that kind of was making me think about that again. But then I just kind of like flashed into seeing these other things. It's like I've seen this before, and then like the deal with the kids, and it's like, okay, am I getting glimpses of what my future is like? The things that I'm lining up with for this journey. And I think that's very much the case in 345. So, yeah. But now, why did I get there? Because going with the flow. Yeah. Okay. What else? I know there was more to the thing overnight. Or early this morning. I don't know, there's like been more with like that whole thinking about, okay, when I have the days where I am more flowing with what's going on, you know, just the day-to-day existence and following the thoughts wherever they lead me, and I want to go go to the freaking pawn store and then find the things and the, you know, other things that have lined up. I don't know, it's just very interesting. But there are times it feels like connecting to this guy, right? It's not a new thing. I've talked about it a bunch on here, I think. You know, I had like one day last summer when I was walking around the cemetery and was randomly interested in what his middle name was. I have literally no way of knowing for sure if this is the case or not. What I do know is when I was thinking this question, I immediately was drawn to the stone with the name Robert. It's like, is that the middle name? It's like, there's literally no way for me to know this right now, right? So, like, I don't even know if that information's on the internet somewhere to confirm or whatnot, but I don't want to confirm anything that I'm finding with my intuition until I actually meet the dude. And I know that's going to happen at some point. We're flowing, right? This is the point, just going with the flow. There are reasons for everything that happens. I'm learning, especially at this point in time. But Robert came to mind, right? It showed up on this stone, and then, like, as I'm walking the dogs through the cemetery, it came up on several stones where it was like, that was just automatically the ones that my attention was drawn to after this whole conversation point, right? And then I talked about, like, that felt like a very, very much a conversation that was being had at some other level, right? So it just started popping up, and then it led me to, like, think some other things with, like, where this name, like the first and middle, have kind of shown up a few times in my and part of my life, I guess. Well, I mean, everything's kind of in my life to some degree, if it comes my way. But yeah, like, it came up in a few spots, and then I don't know if it was later that day or later that week. It was like, okay, well, there's literally no way for me to verify this, but if that is the case, I don't want to see his initials, first, middle, last, somewhere where it is so obviously meant for me that I can't miss it. And I was driving home from Greenfield and happened to be passing this little campground. I don't really know anything about it other than, like, I feel like there are people that stay there pretty much through the year. It's not real big or fancy, and the sites are, like, right on top of each other, but there's a bunch of people that stay there. But my eyes immediately went to this camper. Like, I looked over right at the exact moment to see these three letters right together in the middle of this word. It's like, there it is. Okay. You know, but then I still wasn't 100% ready to go along with it. I mean, because that still seems kind of out there that, these initials are now following me everywhere. Except for I realized they've really been following me everywhere because on 2 vehicles that my ex had, they were in the middle of them. And the model number, I don't know. My thinking is when I hear make, it would be like GMC or Ford or whatever. And then model was okay, like this thing is the Escape. But yeah, badly pronounced because of Dory, but still. Yeah. But yeah, 2 of the vehicles that my ex had. And then there was something with the third one the third one was technically the second one, but whatever. 2 of them had one particular relevance. The third had a relevance to something associated with this stuff, but differently so. And I'll explain that one day, but not today. But yeah, his initials were like on these 2 models of vehicles. That I was frequently driving. Yeah. But anyway, so I feel like there's like this whole kind of like a telepathic component, I guess, if you will. Because if I have a thought, particularly certain questions, sometimes it feels very much like there is a direct response to that, whether I just happen to look up and see the name in various places, where it just pops out at me, and God, how long have I been going to the cemetery to walk the dogs? That's been a long time, y'all. And even that with the birth date, that car said Tyler on the license plate. Obviously not the friend, but but there again, there's his name, because his stuff follows me a lot too. Yeah. And that's another thing that I've been seeing a lot lately too. The other day, I don't know, I looked at one thing and it's like 4/29, which was his birthday, was like everywhere, and then 7/19 also, which was his death date. Then of course 34's Papa in, because that's how old he was when he died. But it's like, there were a couple days where it's like I saw these numbers like nonstop. It's like, okay, something's going on here. But yeah. So yeah, the telepathic component, right? So then this morning I'm thinking through these different sorts of scenarios and wondering if this connection is one of the weird things he believes to be true that he's shared with the people he spends a lot of time with, right? And just the thoughts that I was having with that. There's 4, 3, 2, 1. I don't know. Basically, I saw like this. I was like having this sort of conversation with them, but I feel like I saw them having this conversation, and about this telepathic piece, and then doing a video, and something I say lines up with something he's told them about the connection. So it's kind of like, what the fuck's going on here? That kind of a thing, right? And I've talked about like the whole telepathy thing, and I do think that is an actual thing. I think that is something that the more detached and disconnected from the lower vibe, lower density energies, like the more you clear that stuff out of your system, the more you're open to communicate with soul family members at this other level. It's like might not be something that we're immediately aware of right at this point in time per se, but like the energies coming up to, the things pushing you in one direction or another could very much be connected to the flow with having these telepathic connections, right? So you might not hear it as actual words, but maybe you get this idea to go somewhere, and maybe it's something about going to this place, or like the whole twin flame thing. I'm confident that we will be meeting. I feel like we're going to be meeting in the very near future, officially. But it's like with my life, it's like, why? What about current events makes me feel that way? It's like, exactly that I don't know. I can't know anything. I just know that as I continue to go with the flow and to follow the little whims, I keep ending up, whether it's having these sorts of visions that I feel like are giving me glimpses of what's in my future. I don't know. There's so much to it, and it kind of makes my head hurt. Okay, another thing that I've been thinking a lot lately too. So of course, on the twin flame things, they talk a lot about the divine masculine, divine feminine, blah, blah, blah. And just because you're in the feminine or masculine packaging does not mean that's the space that you're moving from. And what I mean by that is this whole thing has been like, me starting the YouTube channel and starting the other things that I'm starting to make moves on, making an actual part of what I do, comes from following the masculine aspect of myself, right? So okay. Let's get the motorcycle out of here so it stops rumbling in my head. Okay, so I talk like with music, okay? Like I feel like musicians, especially masculine packaged musicians, physically speaking, the masculine packaging, I feel like, especially to be any good at it, they have to be connected with the feminine aspect of themselves, because the feminine is the flow, the creativity, and like all this stuff, right? So, lots of musicians and artists and other things will tell you about being in the flow state. That's where the magic happens, right? So there's something about being in the masculine packaging with the connection to the feminine aspect, which the way I've talked about it on here before, the as above to my so below, right? So he is to my heart space, right? So, and vice versa. So if at any point earlier in my life I had actually started to try to connect to my heart and listen to the guiding voice, I could have missed out on a lot of shit that I put myself through. But like every time I started trying to follow the intuition, it's like it never led me astray. But I would always, like, my ego would always step in somewhere along the line and then block the thing that I, was pushing to see happen or whatever. And, it ended up being a big hot mess. And then it would lead me down this very negative spiral. The negative spiral that led me to not trusting myself, and which is exactly why this whole journey has been so important to me, right? So, okay. So, I have been the big hang up on the connection, right? So, like you hear a lot about, like, with the twin flame community, it's the runner chaser dynamic, right? And even though I've never met this dude in person, we've encountered each other online a couple times. But officially met, no. And been in the same physical space, no. Well, once, concert, but yeah, not close. I mean, probably within like 40 feet or something, but still, because I knew nothing about boundaries or the importance for having them. There again, with all these damn cancer placements that I talk about a lot, and then my Neptune complex that's apparently a thing, adding more water to my whole situation, and then, that whole Year of the Pig piece, which water pig 1983 is a water pig year, so there more water. It's like, because I feel like I'm freaking drowning in my chart, so great. But it's like, so I feel like I've always picked up on the energies and feelings of others around me, and the transmuter piece, as a transmuter, means these icky energies latch on for me to help release them. So as I'm being swayed by all this damn water and by feeling all the things and very much losing myself anytime I'm around other people, whether they're like significant connections in my life, like my parents, which, I've talked a lot about that toxic connection on here as well. But then, like the places I've been where there've been lots of people, like sporting events. Oh my God, I cannot go to a sporting event and not... Okay, like my ex used to be really into basketball, and we would go to Pacers games, and being in that space with all of those people, at some point, the national anthem was always a big triggering piece, and I think that's more because it has so much connected to it. But it's like, I always would end up tearing up at like this stuff, right? And then, oh God, and the sad commercials. Throw on the Sarah McLachlan Angel with the sad animals. Yep, I'm like crying over everything. It's like every single damn thing would make me cry, and then it was like make me feel bad about things. And it's like I could always feel like the pain of others around me. It's like I would, I've talked a lot about how like the stuff with my family, when like the way my mom's always been around me, it's because that's my mom. Surely there's not supposed to be anything wrong with her. It became a thing where I figured there was something wrong with me, right? So I've spent my entire life, rocking the hermit crab thing, going and hiding within myself anytime things get really hard, right? Or scary. And that's something like, okay, when the start of this, it's a lifelong thing, y'all. Like, I've always been vaguely aware that there's this thing that is happening beyond me, but haven't been able to connect fully to it. Because all the other energies just kind of latch on and, pull me into, well, I think, 444, I think part of it was when I invited the demons in because I thought God hated me, and therefore if God hated me, then I hated God because I thought that there was something wrong with me existing, because of everything and everyone that I've been around in my entire life. I think when I invited the devil or the demons in, what it did was it basically just subjected me to more of the lower energies that were able to latch onto me and my energy and keep me in a very low space. So as I've been clearing that out and setting boundaries for what is not acceptable for people that I'm going to be around, like my family and their negativity, I avoid most of my family as much as I can, particularly my parents and my grandmother. And I've talked on here many times about every single time, 555, I am around my grandmother at all. At another 5. Something's going to happen later that day, and they're going to try to suck me in further. Because the low density shit latching on, because at one point when I was younger, I invited it in because life hated me anyway, so therefore I hated life. So then what was the point? And then, and after I did that, I got to a point, I had all these posters from the Teen Bop and Tiger Beat magazines and all those fun things that were all over my walls. And I was in 6th grade, I think, and I was looking around, and it's I just heard all these, it's I got really paranoid with the eyes watching me, and I had to take them all down. And I've talked about I've talked about when I thought I was going to have when I was having a mental break in undergrad and going to the house off campus that I was living in, knowing that I was going to be there by myself for a few hours. And the way home, it's there was just all these voices in my head, that were just kind of mocking me and laughing at me, a whole lot of that. But then there was a lot of stuff that was there were whispers, but I couldn't understand what was being whispered, right? So I think this is a part of the telepathy thing where if you invite in the negative, it basically brings the frequency down so you can no longer connect to the higher levels, the higher energies, so the soul family members and all that stuff. But as I've been setting boundaries with my family and shutting them out more and more, there's a hawk over there. It's that stuff can't reach me, 819, reach me like it was there for a long time. Because that I was in 6th grade when I invited that in. And then, there was a big struggle with the suicidal ideation and all this heavy, dense shit. But then, of course, there have been sometimes, it's okay, in undergrad, that's college campus, there's a lot of the energies, right? And a lot of people doing a lot of things and struggling with a lot of things. And so, what's coming to mind is that whole group think thing. I know I've heard an Abraham Hicks thing where they talked about thought forms, and if there's like a bridge or something where there's been some sort of trauma, or like bridge collapse or whatever, there's a lot of fear that's in the environment, then everybody kind of picks up on it even when they don't realize it. Yeah. But anyway, going back to the thing. So since I've always been in my flow, right? Not in a good way necessarily. Because it was... Okay. Because we got the female packaging. I have had certain beliefs imposed on me. I've been conditioned to believe certain things. Like the big one that always comes up first is that whole church bullshit with wives are supposed to be submissive to their husbands and not speak in church. And if they have a question about something that's going on associated to the church, they need to talk to their husband about it outside of the church, and he can decide if it's something that needs to be brought up to the church or whatever. That kind of bullshit. Or like when my great grandma, who I adored, by the way, with the dude I thought I was going to marry, he met her a few times, hung out with me over there several times. One day, I think he wasn't there, and she said something about making sure I needed to get married before all the good ones were snatched up, right? Those kind of toxic ideas. And the ones that lead to, people like my grandfather being forever enabled by a bunch of women catering to his bullshit because they thought that's what they were supposed to do. It's like allowing the toxicity to continue, right? So back in August, when I realized that I had spent 33 years of my life mourning this man's death and he still hadn't died, I said I would mourn his death no more. I stopped being as available for the family, right? Especially for him. And then like when weird shit's happening, like my mom's trying to talk me into, oh, good, you're coming. He really needs a hug from you. It's like that. I've never hugged that man before in my life that I recall, and have no intention of starting today, right? So that was like the last time I saw him alive. And, like the last couple times that he was in the hospital room, there were a couple times like where I was there and didn't want to be, and I barely, I think, even looked at him. But it's like I could feel him just kind of watching me. 333. But it's like I wasn't engaging with that at all. Like I would talk generally about something that was on TV or whatever, but I wasn't trying to connect with him, wasn't trying to look at him, nothing. And part of that being anytime I had been around him, he always made it a big thing to point out all the things that were wrong with me or that made me different and that were a problem for him because I didn't conform to what he wanted, for his image of his family appearing perfect despite the fact that everybody was miserable. And yeah. Okay, so how did I get there? All right, the flow thing. Right, so like ever since the whole twin flame thing came more into my awareness, 2020, 2021-ish, well, I mean, that's when it came up, but I didn't really fully give myself to the idea of it until 2023, when I was watching that movie with my mom, Love Again, and it, I found myself thinking, maybe I'm ready to be ready for an actual connection with somebody again, right? Of course, I was watching a lot of Abraham Hicks back then. It's like, if you're ready, the universe will line you up with the things to get you ready, to get you where you need to be, right? And so 2023, when I finally said, maybe I'm ready to be ready for this, and turned my love and career life over to the universe to lead, then this person specifically, who'd been kind of dancing around in the periphery all my life, I've realized, but didn't realize at that point, he had something that he posted, and then I started watching it this one night, and then because I set that intention that the universe could take the lead on my love and career lives, then I find this video that hadn't even been posted recently. It was like several months before that it had been posted, but the guy just randomly posted a clip on his Instagram that made me it got my attention, and I clicked it, and then it was like, is this a new song? It's like, it very much was not a new song, but I listened to it over and over and over again. It's just like, I don't know, it just felt like somebody out there got what I was going through. And it was just the energy that I was receiving from the song and the lyrics of the song and all this stuff, right? So when I'm watching this video, that intuitive voice pops up and says, that's him. That's the one you've been looking for all your life. And it's like, yeah, right. It's not that easy. It's not that quick, right? But then everything's just kind of been falling into place with that. So it's like, okay, well, that's why a big part of this whole thing has been learning to trust myself, and that intuitive voice that I'm learning to listen to, and when I started setting boundaries with my family and what I would allow myself to be around or not, and being less affected by the bullshit. It's like, oh, as I've cleared some of that out, it's like, oh, this is like a whole new way of existing that I never thought was possible, because I always let everybody pull me into their shit. And that was the big thing, because I could see it with all these damn water placements, all the feels, because I could see it, I thought that meant I was responsible to fix it. But that is not what that means, right? So, yeah. Seeing it just means I'm aware that it's there and can, what I'm finding is, one of the ways I am able to change my environment, if you will. Okay, like my brother. I've talked a lot about when I first really started processing some things out of my system through this whole YouTube thing. At first, I would not tell my brother anything about it. And at some point, I feel like I have received from him that this is not his lifetime to wake up. And I've told him this before now. But yeah. But it's like I just have this very strong sense that that's not the case for him this time around. And when... Okay, so there's been a lot of death the past couple years. And the one thing I've talked about, my uncle on here being the first of the deaths that were around me, because I pulled some cards one day and this one card that came out was the Sisters of the Seasons, and it was talking about, it was this Colette Baron-Reid Wisdom of the Hidden Realms deck, I think. But it said every season has its, every season is important, and you have to go through all of the ones, even when they're hard, but it was like something about being mindful of what season you're in and allowing for that season to be there and just be in that space, right? It came up right after I realized I was seeing 37 all the time, and finally made the connection that was my great-grandpa's birthday, March 7th. And then I realized that every time I was seeing this 37 everywhere, it was because, he's trying to get my attention, right? My guides on the other side were trying to get my attention. That was one of the ways they were doing it early on, and then when I pulled that card, then it was like, I got this really strong sense that it was like a death season, right? And I was pretty sure it felt like my grandparents were right up there, especially my grandfather. But I think a big part of that was because I disconnected my energy, so he wasn't just sucking the life out of me anymore. He was finally able to kick the bucket. Yeah. But 11/11. So yeah. Okay, so where's that? But with that, my uncle was one of the first ones that came along, and I remember thinking through all these things. It's like, I'm supposed to be a healer. I know this. I don't know how that looks. I don't know how that works. I just know this is supposed to be something that I'm able to do, this healing thing, right? And basically what I realized was there's a reason I've been shut off from that, because it's not for me to fix everything for everybody, right? You don't know what their lessons are that they chose to come here in this lifetime and learn, so you can't get in the middle of other people's stuff, right? So, yeah. Which, okay, goes back to my brother. So if this isn't his life to awaken, then it's like, okay, well, that's fine. But it's like, I feel like I can't not share with him the stuff that I'm learning about, like, the toxic connections in the family, right? And so I started talking to him about what I was realizing with the boundary setting and whatnot. Actually, before I started talking to him, like, really getting involved with the conversations, I started sending him some, not blue onyx by any means, because this was a new one in my life, but I started, as I started looking into the rocks, and realizing which ones were for boundaries and protecting your energy and all that stuff. It's like I started directing him to things. I started, getting things for him, and, he wears some of the bracelets that, I wear if I'm not just doing things with the dogs. Like today I walked my dogs, and then I walked my brother's dogs over at the cemetery because they had a showing for their house and the dogs needed to not be there. So I took the dogs and the kid and we went to the cemetery and went on a walk. But yeah, so like on days that I'm doing dog stuff, I don't wear the bracelets because I don't want to break them. If I'm going into the community, then I will wear them. Or if I'm going to be around family, I will wear them. But like today I escaped, so, and I do have my pocket full. I'm glad this is a big one that I'm going to start carrying now too, right? Because obviously there's not enough in this. That's not near as convenient to see them, though. I have green onyx in here. I also have white, and I'm pretty sure I have black onyx in there, too. I also got black onyx in my notes, so now I can't put the thing in my pocket. Yeah, the heart will end up in the pouch. I just did not put it in there because I knew I wanted to talk about it today. But yeah, like I started to realize it's like that's one of the things that I do. It's like as I've learned the stuff being useful for me, then I started telling my brother about it and, you know, hooking him up with some of the things that, you know, now he believes in them like I do. And of course, all that started with the freaking red jasper when I was down in Alabama that I've told that story a bunch of times and I'm not going to tell it here right now. But yeah, it's like that's something that I realized I was able to do. I can affect my environment by, you know, okay, feeling that he needs to have some boundaries from our family as well, so I can hook him up with some of the things that help him to enforce his boundaries a little bit better, right? And in sharing that with him, it changed more of the environment for me, where it made it safer for me to start being able to talk to him about more of what I was learning. And yeah, so it's like eventually he ended up, you know, in his little group therapy thing because of a work narcissist issue where it's come back to realizing that our family is why he struggled with these things like I have too. But you know, like when I first started the YouTube thing, November 11th, 2023, because 11/11 and 1, 2, 3. And yes, that was intentional since it was right there. You know, but when I started that, even the reason I started it was because this whole twin flame thing came up, and I knew that he had to be in some kind of spotlight for me to find him, but then how was he going to find me if I was just hiding all the time, right? So the YouTube thing, I didn't know what it was supposed to be, but then it like started to become this thing where I was just processing out my trauma and figuring out how I got to this point in my life and all those fun things. Kind of a talk therapy thing. I'm getting hungry. Yep, there. Sorry. But yeah. Let's see where we're at. Oh, 29%. Yeah. Okay. Oh, I was looking at the clock more, but 6:22. But yeah. Like I realized that's a way I can influence my environment and make it safer for me, because now through me having boundaries and then setting my brother up with these things that help him to have better boundaries, then we're both more protected against what the family bullshit has always kept pulling us back into. You know, and like when we were growing up, you know, we've ratted each other out on stuff, and like the bigger thing on that, I think, was more we were raised to think that it was wrong to have secrets because it meant you were doing something you weren't supposed to be doing. But what we've learned is that this family is toxic and will suck the life out of any dreams that you have. So it is okay not to share the dreams with the family because they will piss all over them, you know, and they will, like, you know, mom would take stuff that she had no business sharing with our grandparents, you know, and, you know, take it over there and then make fun of us behind our backs, right? So it's like, that's not okay. But it took us a long time to realize, it took us protecting our energies before we really realized that was what was even happening, right? So, okay. So how did I get there? There was a point. There's always a point. This was the YouTube thing. Oh, it took a while before I actually told him what I was doing. And I told him, it's like, I knew that if I told you too soon, you would have let it slip to mom and dad, and then they'd have been on my ass about it, thinking that it was some terrible thing. And, you know, it's like I was not going to take any chances with that. It's like, I don't know. Okay, I have seen some things with where I believe that this will go, you know, and basically the little life I've been living is not the one that's been meant for me, but it's been a matter of learning to speak my truth and to protect my energy before I could feel safe enough to get to that point. Oh, that's okay, so the twin flame thing. Back to that. So one of the first things that happened with that connection was, I've talked about this a lot of times too. I happened into one of his Instagram lives, and I was new to the Instagram thing, and I didn't know what it was, and it's like, ooh, what's this? And then I go into this space, and it's like, it seems like a very cozy environment, and like, cool. And I noticed that like he had some like lighting things in his space that I like having in my space, and it's like, the thing that I immediately think of is like, and I probably have a picture of it somewhere. When I was in undergrad, I had like these blue rope lights all around the bottom of my loft, and then I had my desk, it was a big corner desk that I had, so it was kind of, so if I was sitting there with my roommate in the room, she wasn't going to look at what I was doing on my computer, kind of a thing was the big thing, because I've never been really trusting of people sneaking up behind me. I don't like that. If I go to a restaurant or something, I prefer being where there is a wall behind me. Doesn't always happen. Doesn't kill me when it doesn't happen, but I don't like that. And yeah, so I've just always been that way. Twin flames. Okay. There was that live stream, and then there was another live stream that I got to, and then he ended up getting ready to close it out right after I had clicked into it. And I said something, and he responded to it. And there's 111. There was like this big traumatic moment for me of, I've been seen. It was like this big crap kind of a thing. But like I never in a million years would have expected that he like actually responded. But then it was like he responded, and then it was like, oh fuck. But then what happened was I had this weird ass dream, and in the dream, like I went into this bathroom and go into the first stall, and it was like one of the stalls in my one of the bathrooms in my high school. And there's like 4 stalls in it, and I realize that he is like cleaning the bathroom, and it's like, but starting at like the far stall, like he comes in right after I like duck into the stall, and like he goes down to the other end. And I remember like this big sense of like panic washing over me, as there's like, what, first off, it's a dude in here. There was that point. But then also like just all these things with freaking out, and why is a freaking music producer and musician and cleaning bathrooms and all this stuff. But what I've really realized is, like the dream was a bathroom, because I cannot tell you how many times when I was in high school, more than anything, I would end up in the bathrooms in the passing periods to get away from the people. And I didn't realize fully that was like, or how much of a thing that was, until it like even pops up in this dream. It's a thing where it's like, oh, I literally always am hiding. So then it's like, at this energetic level, then, okay, well, what are we hiding? Why are we hiding? All these things, right? And going back to that point of, all these water placements, and, particularly, I mean, look, all my water placements are Cancer, okay? So it's the crab, and, I've talked about the vision that I had where it's like, okay, I was listening to this one music video that he was in, and I just kept listening to the song over and over again. It was on YouTube, so it was the video. But as I'm listening to it, like I flash into this thing where I'm like yelling at my grandmother and my mother, and just like, stop telling me that how much you loved him and you miss him since he's gone. It's like, just because it's like your commitment to staying in that situation isn't because you were in love with a man, it was because you were afraid to not have anybody, kind of a thing, and afraid to be alone. It's like, so don't don't act like this is a big traumatic thing that he's gone. It's kind of a relief that he's finally gone. But like I'm yelling at them in this dream or this vision, and then it switches, and it's like all at once I'm in this space with these guys in this band that that they're doing this music video for. And, I found myself like on the verge of like a freaking panic attack or something. It's like, I just need to go sit by a wall or something, right? So I go and sit down. And as I was writing about this vision, it's like I realized it's like I felt very exposed in the moment. It's like I went from yelling at my family to it switches and I'm suddenly in this environment with these other people, and then I feel very exposed, and that's a scary feeling. And then as I was writing about it, I really had it's like that intuitive voice pops in again and says, you feel exposed, or I'm focusing on the part where the crab is out of the shell and how awkward and ugly this little crab ass looks and all this stuff, right? And just like this terrifying thing, right? Being exposed. And it says, but it's necessary when when you've outgrown your shell, right? So yes, there's a momentary traumatic space of feeling exposed, but it's because you've grown and the other space doesn't fit anymore. It's like, but the whole thing, it's just made me really realize that, especially in the places that have been especially crowded in my lifetime, like high school. And luckily it wasn't a huge high school. I think, my class was the smallest in like several years on either side of it. And there's none that small since, but even on the other side, like before my class, it's like my class seemed especially small, and there was like 176, I think. But at the same time, it's like in the space walking down the halls with all those people, when I felt all those energies because they're just kind of latching on. It's like I would go to the bathroom and hide out. And I cannot tell you how many times I have had a freaking dream that has had some piece of it where I've been in the bathroom. It's like, why am I always in the damn bathroom? It's like, because you've always been hiding, so stop it. So, okay. But then, going back to the twin flame piece, because that's why I got here. So, a big part of this whole thing for me is learning to trust myself, right? And, of course, doing this has been a means of doing that. But yeah, and like following the whims and like having the random things that I've talked about, where like I'll have the conversation with my intuition about what's his middle name, and then suddenly this thing pops up and like it's popping out of all these different like stones and places, and like I see it. I mean, it's not, Robert's a pretty common name, so it's like it's a lot of places. But because of how it came up and with this conversation in this other space of what's his middle name, and then show me the 3 initials for confirmation and make it so clear that it can't be, or that I can't miss it. And then there it is. It's like, oh, okay, well, that must be it. So, and I keep getting these messages too. Like I know Gem Goddess has been one place that it's come from. And Kino, I think. But talking about making sure you do follow your intuition and learn to trust yourself and all this stuff. And it talks about like using your voice and actually talking about the things that you feel sure of, even if you don't feel sure of them. Somehow there's some kind of surety there. But it's like learning to trust yourself, because you will be right. But then, going back to that telepathic component, where since since I'm working from the divine masculine aspect of myself, learning to take inspired action and, do the things that I feel are that, like starting the YouTube channel, and all that fun stuff. So it's like, since I've been operating from that space and he's been operating more from the other space, and of course he talks a lot about like this weird spiritual shit and stuff. So then it's like, then I'm having this freaking thought process overnight about what if he not only does know about the channel, but has shared it with the people that he that are around him immediately. And this is one of those things to support what he's been talking to these people about, right? And me learning to trust myself and talk about the crazy sounding shit, in spite of the fact that it sounds like some crazy shit. But since we've not actually met in person, let alone talked substantially by any means, and then that would go to the point of, I remember, since, I was big into the churchy shit for a long time, wanting to basically have some kind of proof, if you will, that, God is real, or, whatever, and that there's something bigger going on and leading this whole thing, even in spite of all the ways that, we try to talk ourselves out of it and all this stuff. Fingers locked up. Ouch. Did it again. Damn it. Okay. I have my little loop thing on my thumb now. So, yeah. But it's like, okay, the fact that we don't know each other currently, but we're connected, and there's still this, I believe, telepathic element piece, right? Where we are communicating the things, but then have no way of supporting it unless, we talk to people about it, and then somehow comes up, and then one thing leads to another, and blah, 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 there it is, and what the fuck just happened, kind of, yeah. I don't know. Yeah. But that was just kind of part of my little thought process this morning. It's like, because if that goes into the strangest thing you believe to be true that he's talking about to people he actually knows, and he actually, I feel like he has a much better network of people around him than the people that I've been around, and thus I don't have I don't really have any friends. So yes, which is why I have to learn to trust myself, and then I'm just bringing it to the space where I can sound crazy, and there was 222, and yeah, it's like, eventually it will be revealed that it is all connected, right? So even though it sounds crazy, even that though, it's like, there is a reason that so much of my life has been wrapped up in feeling crazy and believing myself to be crazy and working through these things. It's because you talk like this to people, then you're going to sound pretty crazy. And that's okay. But it's only because I've learned to trust myself and start following these things that, I've really... Okay, I worked in mental health, y'all. That's what I got my bachelor's degree in, was psychology. Like, that was stuff I was interested in. And it's like, when I had no other option but to go to college after high school, because it was my mom's biggest regret that she had never gone, and so I had to go. It's like, I had no other option but to go. And so I went. And then it was like, well, if nothing else, maybe I'll figure myself out. That was literally my motivation behind going into psychology, was maybe I'll figure myself out. And I think it did give me a lot of tools to kind of, navigate this whole path with. But, it's kind of funny when I'm talking to my brother, and he wants to talk like he knows something that I like have. This should be brand new to me because he's older than me and is supposed to know more about things, right? And then he presents something with psychology. It's like, you do realize that I worked in this field for almost a decade, as well as I did go to, get my bachelor's in that and all that stuff. So he'll say something, and then like I'll have something else I'll throw back, or that, like, because something I said he heard then from one of the therapists in his group, which is also through the company that I used to work with. So there are two training elements. I'll say something, and then he'll be like, oh yeah, well, Tom from the group or whatever talked about this. It's like, yeah, okay. Confirmation, there you go. Just roll with it. 3, 4, 5, 6. And yeah. Anyway, I'm at an hour and 35 minutes. I will say, I got my shelves today. My little spider webby shelves, and my the coffin shelf that I'm super psyched about. And I don't know if I talked about this on here before or not. Okay, so there's this guy from high school that I always really liked him. And there's been like a series of things that have made me feel somehow more connected to this dude, right? Like, okay, when I moved back from Alabama, and like the first thing I did was cut off all my hair, because if nothing else, it was ex-husband deterrent. And he kept trying to, he would always say, he tried to accuse me of being a lesbian or something. It's like, honestly, I feel like he always accused me of it because, well, that's kind of the narcissism thing to do, where you're accusing somebody of the thing that you are because you're not okay with being it. I mean, not a lesbian, but gay, but, but, like you have some kind of negative view on it, so you put it out on this other person, right? So I always felt like he was closeted, but would never come out just because of the, like his family. And that was, honestly, I felt more sorry for him when we were together than anything because of that element. And I had a dream about it at one point, and I told him about that, and I think it looked like it kind of freaked him out, to be honest. And it was kind of like he increased the shitty behavior toward me after I told him about this dream where he confessed to being gay. But whatever. So the point of that was, because he kept accusing me of this thing while we were together and while I was leaving, it was like, it's the least deterrent from him, right? So I cut like all my hair off, and I had a faux hawk for a while. And at one point, I took a picture, and when I looked at the picture, it's like, why does this remind me of Sam? And I told him, okay, so I didn't tell him right then. Okay, so like that was the first thing I thought of with this picture. Oddly enough, Sam had liked the picture after I had this thought. So it's like he starts appearing more, right? And there was the faux hawk and the Sam comment. And then shortly thereafter, I found out he is literally a day older than me. Now, he was a year ahead of me in school because I flunked preschool because I wouldn't talk to anybody. But, so he was a day older than me, which we would have figured out if we would have been in the same grade. But since we weren't, we weren't close enough to figure that out. But the guy that was in my grade that had the same birthday, he was exactly 1 year younger than me. So yeah, anyway, so then there's that piece. Then there was something else with this band that this guy's in, right? So, where we found out that, me and Sam found out we're both big fans, right? And, he lives in another state, and he also got to see this particular tour and all this stuff. And there's like, okay, so there's another little bonding element. I don't know why. Out of the blue the other day, he sent me a message, and we had this really good conversation. It's like, I said something at one point, you know, I randomly made a comment of like, that is correct. And then I said, bonus points if you heard that in Chris Farley's voice. And then we like both sent each other like, his was just a picture. I found I figured out how to send a GIF on the Instagram message, and you know, so mine was like where he's actually moving, and his was just a picture. So like, that was the one little snag. But it's like just like the conversation. It's like, how were we not like best friends like all of those years? Like I always liked him. I always knew he was a really good guy, but like we just never really had the opportunity to talk, I guess. But so out of the blue, the other day, he sends me a message, and I don't even remember how everything went on that end, like with like where we even started out. But we had a really good conversation. At one point, he sent me this picture in his space, and he had the coffin shelf on the wall behind him. I was like, dude, I said, I have had that thing in my cart at this like Vampire Freaks page for at least a week now. And it's like, I keep going back and forth because I want this thing, but at the same time, it's like, it's a lot of money. Do I really need this right now? Especially since I know I'm going to be leaving here in the not too distant future. I just haven't figured out how all those pieces are going to come together, right? Some things, it's universe to figure out, and it'll fill me in later. So, yeah, but when he sends me a picture and he's got this coffin shelf, but it was in red, I was like, dude, I'm going to take that fucked up synchronicity as I'm meant to get this thing. So I got it, and it came today, and I was really excited. But, I mean, it's black, which is an obvious choice, but I think I'm going to paint it, not completely. I'm going to leave the base black, but like kind of have like some splatters of like the orangey and the aubergine over the top. So it's still kind of like gothic-y kind of colors, but kind of goes along with that lamp that my great-grandma's old lamp that we had in the shed for a long time until I finally brought it in and asked my mom, it's like, what are you going to do with this lamp? And she said, I don't know. I said, can I paint it? And she said, are you going to use it? And I said, I will if I paint it. So she let me paint it, and now it's my lamp, and it's never leaving me again. Yeah, but it's awesome. But I'm going to paint it so it kind of goes along more with the lamp colors, kind of gothic-y-esque. But anyway, that was just a random thing that I was really excited about and thought I'd share. So yeah. On that note, I've talked about a lot of stuff here on here today, and I don't really know what else to talk about. I think because again, hour and 42 minutes is probably long enough. You can go ahead and wrap it up and go find something else to do. Food is something else to do today. Yeah, and I really like this makeup, by the way. Yeah, I was thinking, because obviously that's the thing that I do to comment, that I should wrap this up and then continue talking. But yes, I was thinking that I should start kind of taking pictures of like the makeup, the jewelry, the things that I end up wearing, and like just the different compilations from time to time. Yeah, and sharing those more. So, another exciting thing. So I talk about the Eklektik shelf gifts page a lot on Etsy. So my new earrings are on their way. This is the one that little cat in the there. Yeah. And the little thing says pew. So I was super excited, and there's a cat on the shirt, and it kind of looks like it goes with that, and I wasn't sure about the colors at first, if they would go with it, but then they did, and then, I've just paired it with pandas, because why the fuck not? It's got pink. Pink, orange, and purple were the reasons that they went together. So there's a little bit of purpley colors there. But yeah, I was just thinking, it's like, okay, so some of this stuff, I should take pictures of it and have it somewhere so I can be like, oh, this is what I did the last time. Because every now and then I'll come across a shirt or something, and it's like, what did I pair this with last time? I mean, obviously I'm always down for mixing and matching things. But yeah. Oh, the things are coming, right? And I was really excited because I was writing something the other day. I was journaling, and I just like I combined my name with terrorize, and I was like Sarah-rise. It's like, ooh, I like this word. And it had something to do with basically the fact that I'm gonna fuck with my family, and like tomorrow I'm doing the rotting Christ apparel for the family get together, which only makes more sense because my uncle was burning stuff today, and I went out there to burn a box of stuff, add it to the pile, and like when he was running his mouth, he said something about, well, this is the life the Lord gave me or something. It's just like, bleh. And then he like starts coming with, and you're my niece and I love you and blah blah blah. It's like, ugh. And he's like, I wouldn't change anything about you. And I was like, well, that's good, because I don't fucking change for anybody. I'm done with that. Those days are over. Yeah, anyway. Oh, so I got custom earrings coming. Okay, the ones I said I needed something with like Sarah-rise, right? And then I didn't really know. I said, think chaos, but this word. And I was really excited about it. And then, when it came up, I sent it to my brother and the one friend that I don't really talk to now anymore because it went weird. And I just said this word, and they both got a kick out of it. But when I told Wendy about it and was talking about like this idea that I have for these earrings, but I don't know what it is yet, and I told her about that. I said, think chaos and destruction, but Sarah-rise. And then she sent me, the next day, like we didn't really talk at all. We talked a lot last week because, I was all about these earrings. And that was the conversation that started because first I thought about the fact that I didn't have any female friends. It's like, I really need to have some kind of like female connection in my life that doesn't suck, because like all the old friends are like, the derby friends are like no longer a part of the thing. And it's like, okay, so, and then the guy friend went weird. So it's like, okay, now what? So then because of the whims, following the whims and going with the flow, I had my vulture shirt on. And I was like, I need some vulture earrings. It's like, I also need hawk earrings. So I started asking her about those things. So it started with her making me earrings on that end, right? But then, then she starts in one night and says, how do we feel about the god Horus? So I was like, I love Horus because, I've talked about this on here before. I started wearing this largely because Eye of Horus is the one that speaks to protection. Yeah, that was the big one. Healing and protection, that was it. So it's like, well, obviously that needs to be part of this whole thing, part of my thing, right? And I've talked about how I had a meditation that I did where Horus made an appearance, and it's like, like I got this letter, from the twin flame kind of a thing. And it's just like this whole, yeah. Anyway, so I said, we love Horus, so then she like made me a couple of things that, Horus related. And then I asked her about this word, and I said chaos and destruction, but this. So she said, like, the next day we didn't really talk very much at all. And then she sent me something later in the evening, and she was like really concerned I was gonna hate it. And she sends me this thing, and it's a girl in like a dragon costume, and she's got like fire coming out of her mouth, and it says Seror. And I loved her logic for it because she was talking about she's got a lot to say now. And I was like, I love it. I said, and I will take it, but also I still need these other ones, right? So I showed her the picture that I kept, or the oracle card that I kept getting from the Denise Linn Sacred Destiny Oracle. And it was the Healing Chaos card, and it's the tornado, and it has all the butterflies in the tornado. And she made me my own tarot card earrings, or oracle card earrings, and it says the Sarai-rise, and it's got a tornado with butterflies. It's like, I love it. It's like I was thinking flowers, but butterflies is perfect because I love butterflies too. Yeah. And honestly, when I sent her the card, I was like, I also really like these butterflies. I didn't say that, but I thought that. And then, yeah, it was kind of funny. We kind of clicked on a bunch of different things. And I shared my YouTube channel with her and told her that I frequently refer to her with my fancy earrings and things. So, yeah. Anyway, I finally ordered them yesterday. And so I have all these earrings coming. I was just like, okay. I also mentioned like an octopus playing a musical instrument, preferably. I have like the one shirt that has the octopus on it playing the drums. I love that shirt. It was like, so I was thinking kind of like that. It's like, or guitar. Guitar's okay too. But she found this picture. She like found this one, or made this one where when she sent it to me, it's like, that reminds me of Jason Mraz. So it's a Mraztopus. But it's super cute, and I will order them later. But I did not order this round because there were so many other things that I wanted to get. Yes, I got the hawks. I got the horses. Got the vulture. My Saroir and Sarai-rise. And tigers, because tigers are important. I talk about tigers a lot, and they were kind of iridescent, and I loved that. So, yes. And there was at least something else that there were a couple others. I got like 10 pairs coming, y'all. Because there was a bigger discount since I was already over the 5, and was like, okay. So I rolled with it. And that's how that happened. So, yeah. Anyway, there's people coming, and this is awkward now, so I'm going to wrap this up. As always, I appreciate you, and until the next time, see ya.